everyone. Today we have our another new episode. This is our 1214th episode, and we have our world famous speaker, Professor Debashish Guho from SP Jain Global Institutions. And today we're going to discuss on information security and personal data protections, and he has a lot of expertise on that particular area. Professor Debashish Guho, my first question: what are the primary objective of information security, and how you want to define today's topic?
Well, the topic that you have proposed has multiple dimensions. There is the statutory issue of what kind of protections are written into law in every jurisdiction in the world. There's already been a lot of work in this area. Um, European Union was the leader, and other countries have also instituted legal protections to personal data and personal data protection. And the other major issue is the technical one. Even if certain laws are passed and certain laws, statutory obligations are required on technology companies and technology providers, what systems are in place to enforce these statutory obligations, and how do tech companies uh, do this? There is a third issue, and that is, as you well know, the technology of artificial intelligence has been in a very rapid flux the past 14 months or so. And a lot of assumptions that we made about personal data and its protection are now up for grabs in the age of large language models and large language models that use web scale data, and the data protections that are in place or maybe not in place and should be in place for the training of very large language models. So there, there are traditional methods of data protection available through statutory means and through masking of data, anonymizing data, and so on and so forth, that are already in place in security platforms in all major technology platforms. And however, it's becoming more and more difficult to guard against data leakage, and every day we are learning about personal data being leaked from various databases, and this is becoming a major issue across the world now. In many jurisdictions the laws are not clear yet. That is to say that there are certain statutes in place, or maybe there is nothing in place. In some cases, the statutes are in place, but the mechanisms to enforce the statutes are not fully worked out yet. So everything is in a major, state of flux right now, and we will have to see how the entire large language model revolution progresses, because that is one of the principal points of leakage right now, where these large models are built upon very large web scale databases which contain some leaked personal data. And as these models and these systems are more widely deployed, this leakage issue is going to become more and more important.
Thank you, Professor. My next questions to you: what are some common threat to person data security, and how can they be mitigated?
Well, like I said, the traditional threat to data protection was, of course, hacking of various kinds, black hat attacks on databases, and now you know all such databases do have protection in place. It's a continually engaged war, arms race between the hackers, the black hat hackers, and the security professionals. Once in a while, the security professionals lose a battle, and data is leaked. This is going to continue, and many tools are in place to secure data. Tools are being hawked through the dark web and places like that to defeat the security arsenal, and it's a continuing battle and it will continue. However, the new phase, if you will, in this war is this large language model, because there are two issues. One is that the large language models are all uh, built on web scale data. Now, web scale data, they try to not use any personal data. However, you cannot make sure when you are web crawling through very large data repositories that some leaked data is not part of your training data. A bigger problem is, however, when you build apps using LLMs, because when you use LLMs in an application through fine tuning or some sort of retrieval augmented generation, then you are passing data possibly to an external model such as GPT-4 or Claude or Gemini or it's an open source model and so on. So you are not the large language model is not your model. It is not hosted on your server, not a private server. It may be on a cloud. You are maybe connecting it through an API. The your rights to the privacy rights may not be entirely clear because you have maybe have not read the full document closely, that whether they can use it your data for their training and so on. So there is a big issue right now of leakage, data leakage, both from an individual, data and corporate data. So when we talk about personal data protection, we are talking not only of data protection to individuals and consumers, but also from businesses, especially small businesses, which cannot afford to host their own databases and servers. So this is something that is going to only increase with time because LLMs become more and more important in the application landscape. And this is going to be a major, battleground, if you will, in terms of data leakage and people who are trying to steal data and people who are trying to protect data. So, in addition to the traditional uh, phase of databases of various kinds, traditional, usually relational databases that are that have traditional protections in place against hacking and against intrusion, and that is always going to be there of hackers who are trying to intrude and steal your data, and that we know quite a bit about how to protect. And many of the leakages that have taken place are because of insufficient or inefficient use of protective tools. And as we make that more stringent and more secure, uh, that will probably go down. But then this is always a arms race, because there are many ways to get around any kind of protection. Protection has to evolve as the attacks evolve. A much more serious front has been exposed in this war when you're talking about LLMs. Google has demonstrated a tool whereby you can steal data from an exposed API exposed large language model. Uh, this is a white hat, obviously coming from Google. It's a white hat endeavor. You don't know what kind of black hat endeavors are already in place. As these become more, there is already a few cases where data has been leaked from large language models. As they come to be deployed more widely, and it's already happening, if it is not entirely on a private cloud, and even then, there could be attacks through traditional means. But if it is on a shared cloud, if it is being accessed through APIs, then you definitely leave yourself open to all kinds of attacks, which are technology is new enough that we don't know all all the doors, back doors or front doors or trap doors or whatever kinds of doors that might be open to steal this data. So this is going to be a major new battle, if you will, as a lot of the functions of traditional databases are taken over by foundation models such as GPT-4.
Excellent. My next questions to you: what is the importance of user authentic in maintaining information security? Already you explained, but how does the general data protection regulations impact business regarding the protection of personal data?
There is a lot of work in this area. User authentication traditionally has been through, user ID password, and then through two-factor authentication, um, some, you know, biosignal authentication through retinal scans or, you know, obviously fingerprint. A lot of new things are coming in this area. For instance, one of my students, PhD students, is working on a encryption method that uses biosignals. There are various electrical signals coming from the physical biophysical sources, and that have unique prints like fingerprints. So, for instance, the EEG, the ECG has unique fingerprints that can encrypt the source of of the data to a single individual. So, authentication, I think, is going to move from just user ID password, which are obviously not very secure, to biosignal based. Already we have, of course, uh, fingerprint, facial recognition, and retinal scans. We are going to move to other bio-based signals over time. So it's going to be, you know, authentication is going to be entirely biosignal based at some point, and not only fingerprint or retinal scan, but uh, biophysical signals such as ECG and EEG. So this is a trend now that, and we all know that many phones are fingerprint activated now. Uh, Facial recognition is being used for access control in a lot of systems. Retinal scans are being used and have been used for you know, quite some time now, and is going to be more and more of these biosignal, biosecurity enhancements and this is for physical access, but it will also be for digital access. For digital access, uh, you may need, you can use mobile phone based biosignal assay. So that is something that is going to be around for quite some time now. And there will be more, how shall I put it, more elaborate passphrase and those kinds of access methods for things that don't require as much security, but you know, fully biosignal based access. So there will be a lot of developments. This is already started. Most access systems to cyber physical systems now are biophysics driven. So that is going to happen more and more in the future.
Thank you, Professor. My next questions to you: describe the difference between the confidentiality, integrity, availability in the context of information security. And these are the things it's very, very important even for this emerging economy.
Yeah, see, this is something that is being worked out because, like I said, the question of data confidentiality is related also to copyright issues because this has become a major issue in creative endeavors. For instance, text generation, text to video generation, things like that. That there is firstly the question of data confidentiality of personal data, but there is also the question of who has rights on. Just give me a moment. This question of who has rights over content generation. So, suppose I write a blog, and that blog is accessed to generate content. So, who owns, even if it's an open blog that anybody can access, there is a question of who owns the content. So, these issues are not yet settled. There will be a legal issue here. There will obviously be an ethical issue here, but we are still in, at a very initial stage in this process, and litigation has already happened. As you may know, New York Times has sued OpenAI for copyright infringement. Reddit has sold its content to Google, not Reddit, sorry, Quora, I think. And these kinds of deals are going to happen more and more. And once this is in place, then there will be an issue in terms of recently, for instance, the CTO of OpenAI was asked whether they use YouTube videos for training Sora, and she wasn't even sure what happened. So confidentiality and copyright is going to be a major issue in content generation, and content generation is going to be the technology of the future. Whether it's text, whether it's video, whether it's code, whether it's any other kind of content generation, because most of what we do is some form of content generation. So content generation, along with confidentiality and copyright, is going to be a huge legal issue, and not just a legal issue, but also a technical issue, technological issue.
Thank you, Professor. My another question: what measure can individual take to enhance the security of their personal data online?
Okay, this is a this is a question that has multiple, you know, dimensions. One is that a lot of people don't really care about their data being private. They're happy to give it away. As we know, Google and Facebook and many of the major social media, uh, they are built on personal data. The whole business model is based on mining personal data. And as Facebook has said more than once, when you sign on to Facebook and you use the system, then effectively you're signing away at least some of your personal data. Google has always mined all kinds of personal data. Um, there are methods, and you can find them online, of opting out of these systems, of purging even your personal data from social media and from Google also. So these tools are available. They are difficult to use, and it is difficult to opt out of the system altogether. For instance, you can use search engines that respect your privacy and not use Google. You will use DuckDuckGo. Not many people are going to do that. DuckDuckGo works quite well. I've used it, but I still use Google. And Google is easy to use. There's a whole ecosystem that you use, not just the search engine, but other search engines, Gmail, Google Google Office Suite. It's all sort of hangs together. It's very difficult to completely opt out of Google ecosystem. And if you are in the Google ecosystem, then you are going to give up at least part of your personal data. Of course, all of us know about user IDs and keeping your passwords or passphrases secure. There are multiple password savers and password storage tools available. Obviously, in most cases, you do want to use two-factor authorization, even if it's a bit annoying. Uh, but we certainly want to use. And I think over time, everyone has to migrate to, like I said before, some kind of biophysical lock. So something that is secured by at least a fingerprint, if not by even more secure biosegments. So you know, basic hygiene of using secure passwords, storing them in secure places, that of course is a must. Two-factor authorization in most in systems that have that process in place is a must. Those are basic tools that everybody needs to take. Opting out of social media and search media is a step that is much more difficult to take. And before you opt out, you need to purge the system of your data. That takes a little bit more work. It's not that difficult, but you can do it. And people who are worried about personal data leakage should take that. You have to remember that if your password is being leaked, it's very unlikely that it's going to be leaked from Gmail or Facebook for that matter. They have very secure systems in place that are immune to most attacks. It's probably going to be leaked from some uh, site where they don't have that much security. So one method that a lot of people are using is to use multiple passphrases, where some passphrase gets leaked, you are still okay on your main ones. Main ones meaning your main email address and your principal social media accounts, which you use maybe to sign on to others. There is a spectrum of opinion on whether you should have your own authentication on every platform and store it in some kind of a password directory, password tool, or whether you should just use your Gmail or Facebook to sign on to other sites. I'm not enough of an expert in security to tell you which one is better. I've been following this debate, and you know there are people who are on both sides, experts who feel that using Google to pass on to log on to other sites is okay because Google is very secure. Other people feel that you should just have email based or user ID based access at every site that you log on to, and use a different password so that even if it gets leaked, it doesn't affect your other data.
Thank you. Professor Devashish, naturally the emerging economy like Bangladesh or India or Sri Lanka, we are not too much concerned about data protections. Uh, and what do you think? Is it good for us or we have to develop our new policy for this data
Um,
protection?
I am not familiar with the provisions of statutory provisions everywhere. India has come out with provisions, legal statutes in this regard. Um, the ecosystem that protects your data is basically the same wherever you are, because your principal email account is probably going to be either in a server that you access through Outlook or something like that, or it's going to be Gmail or something like that. So you're using the Microsoft ecosystem or the Google ecosystem. Most likely you're using one of these two or maybe both. Uh, in that case, that is the system that protects your because many sign-ups and sign-ins are using Google or Microsoft, and you're both of them use, of course, two-factor authentication. Uh, if you are using, say, Amazon, you're signing on to Amazon again. They have two-factor authorization, and you're using that. So, in terms of access, I don't think there is that much difference. In terms of whether you are giving up your data, again, there is not really that much difference. People on Facebook, whether they're in Iowa or Dhaka, it makes no difference. You are giving up the same things, and Facebook wants you, sign up for the same reasons. If you're in Europe, a little bit different because they have even more stringent rules than the Americans have. But let's say you are communicating through WhatsApp. Now, this is a fully secure system. But again, there is a question of what the local laws are. For instance, although it is fully encrypted, you may be forced by, because of local legal provisions, to give up access to your WhatsApp chats. No matter what the technological barriers are, the law enforcement authorities may ask you to unlock your WhatsApp and show them all the messages because the law requires that you do that. And that, of course, is just a matter of following the local laws, and no amount of technological uh, barriers are going to come in the way of law enforcement when they are looking for terrorists or whatever, or criminals or whatever.
Mm. Thank you. Professor, if you share some of your view about the policy development of this particular area, it may be
Yes,
helpful for our audience. Yeah.
policy development, mainly the question is that of, whether there are statutory provisions on data protection. Europe was the leader in this, and America followed. The rest of the world is still following. Uh, Data protection, statutory provisions for data protection are going to appear everywhere in the world. Some of the developing countries perhaps are a bit behind on that, but since many major tech platforms have to comply with the provisions in Europe and America. They don't want to have different platforms in different countries. It's inefficient. So they have already put in data protection provisions that are required in Europe, which is the most stringent. In addition, yes, there will be the need to have specific statutes. There is a question as to how this there is a political issue here that I don't want to go into, but there is an issue of whether law enforcement wants more access than typically it is provided by these platforms in Western Europe or USA or North America. Um, this is a battle to be fought in each country separately because the tendency for every country and especially in developing countries is for law enforcement to be to have more surveillance, if you will, than is typically provided in these systems. So this is a legislative issue, and in every country, there is a specific legislative process that is being followed to bring these statutes in line with global practice, or maybe to adapt it to local conditions. So this is something that is a bit of a battleground in many countries between people who are, for open systems and you know, strong encryption that allows open speech, and law enforcement authorities who want less encryption or encryption with backdoors, which uh, uh, which allow some open speech but not all protected speech. So we will see how that pans out over time. Uh, there is something to be said for both sides. Obviously, the law enforcement mechanisms are not as efficient in developing countries as in a place like Western Europe, which is very stringent but also very efficient uh, processes in place. So law enforcement may need somewhat more leeway in dealing with you know, black hat actors. Uh, On the other hand, obviously, you want in internet free speech to remain in, as robust a condition as it has been for a while now. So this tension is not going to go away anytime soon. This is going to be there for a long time.
Mm. Thank you, Professor Debashish. What's your closing remarks for today's session?
Closing remark is that the for a long time AI and security were talking to each other, but not as strongly bound as they are becoming now. And what is happening now is that AI has developed to a point where every area of technology, especially software, is going to be invaded by AI technology. And I have been talking to experts in this field for a while now, and they all agree that the LLM revolution in AI is going to be a very important part of security technology, and security technology is going to be transformed by foundation models and LLMs. So this is something to watch that has its own risks and also has its own benefits that we are going to see over the next 3 to 5 years. Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this session.
Thank you, Professor Debashish, for joining today's sessions. I request all of our audience, please share our content with the government agency, corporation, and academy. He is a very good resource and who can help for data security and artificial intelligence development. And I also join his research center. So through his research center, hopefully we can bring a lot of good solutions for our community. Thank you. Bye bye and take care.
Bye now.